Hello everybody and welcome to How To with Doug, the only channel on YouTube featuring me, Doug. We're going to be installing a pre-finished, engineered 7-inch wide white oak plank floor made by a company called Stephen Gamble. They're out of South Carolina, and we are in the Quonset Point area of Rhode Island. We're going to be here for a couple of weeks putting this floor in. I have the owner's dog here, Frankie, to help me, so that's a good thing. So let's take a walk around and see what all is involved. Come on, Frankie. Let's go look at this floor. There you can see I've got a plastic tent set up here because it's winter time, can't set the tools up outside. So we'll be making some dust in the house, unfortunately, but we're doing our best to abate that. Come on, Frankie. So this is the living area. That's all going to get hardwood. Looks like there's a lot of stuff in here because there is. It's all got to be moved several times. This is all getting hardwood into the kitchen. There's a laminate floor in there that's going to be pulled up and there's subfloor put down by me, so that's all going to get done. In through this foyer area, you can see the stacks of flooring taking up lots of space until they get put on the floor. It's all going down in here, in the back here, in this another living area. And you can see in this back living area, there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to be moved before we can install that floor. So we're going to take a walk upstairs now and show you the upstairs bedrooms, the area at the top of the stairs where the nosing has to be installed, and all of the accoutrements that have to be moved in order to do all that. So here is the landing at the top of the stairs. You can see the nosing that has to be installed. This is the master bedroom. Everything's got to be moved to one side, then move back. The guest bedroom, same deal. Everything's got to be moved to one side and then move back. And the very top of the stairs where we have that nosing to install on that landing. So in order to install the nosing, the first thing we have to do is, with our multi-tool, cut down the trim that is up against the stairwell in order to slide the nosing, which is 3/4 of an inch underneath it. We also have to cut down all the door jambs and little pieces of trim surrounding in order to slide flooring underneath that to make life a whole lot easier. So here I am cutting down the trim around the door jambs and around the nosing, or around the stairwell where the nosing is going to go in, bearing in mind that all of this flooring and all of this nosing is getting glued down with a liquid nails subfloor adhesive. And here I'm just explaining that there was a great big hump in the floor, so a lot of that plywood had to be ground down to make it flat, or else the nosing itself would not have sat flat on the platform, and where the stair well is and where the floor butts up to the nosing wouldn't have been even. So these are all little things you have to do in preparation for installation. So what I did was dry fit the 3 courses going into the landing, because I have to turn direction and go into the bedrooms. So in order to get that flooring under the door jambs, I had to figure out the first few pieces that went in. Then, starting with the last piece, glue that in first, then the next to last piece, and then the piece that abuts the stair nosing. Because the plank floor is very rigid and hard to work with, when you try to put it underneath something, it's best to figure those things out first and work backwards. In addition, that allows me to glue a spline or a fake tongue into the groove side of the flooring so that everything is connected, because it is tongue and groove flooring, and you can manufacture your own tongues so you can turn direction. And that's what I've done. And you can see I'm taking out the last piece, then the second to last piece, and lastly, taking out the piece that goes underneath the door jamb. Now I'm using a mallet with a rubber head so I do not damage the pre-finished flooring, which would be difficult to repair. Taking my automatic glue gun and laying a bead of glue roughly every 4 to 6 inches on the back side of every board. The glue is a much better fastener than a mechanical fastener being a nail, a staple, or a screw. After gluing the back side of the boards, I then reinstall them. Last one first, the second one second, and the first one last. In addition to the glue, I nail through the tongue and set the nails to hold the backside of that board down. Then the second board goes in. Again, a strip of glue every 4 to 6 inches. That goes up against the nosing. We have a nice tight fit there. No mechanical fasteners are used on the second board because we want to ensure that the first board that goes in against the nosing maintains a straight line off of the nosing so the floor goes in straight, which is the most important thing in installing a floor. If you can snap a straight line or draw a straight line on the floor, you can ensure a straight line in your flooring. And the last piece goes in with a bead of glue at 4 to 6 inches and up against the nosing. Then repeat it on the next side, and we are ready to finish the landing at the top of the stairs and then turn direction with that spline that I mentioned earlier and go into the bedrooms.
And then we will repeat the process on the other side of the stair landing that goes into the master bedroom, taking the 3 pieces out, installing the last piece first, the second piece second, and the first piece last. That way the landing is done, is ready to be installed. We're ready to turn direction to go into both bedrooms. Again, everything's glued down. There's no squeaks. And this is the right way to do it. And here I am gluing a spline into the backside of the tongue in order to change direction and go into the guest bedroom. After determining a straight line across the room using that board before I put the spline in, I'm able to continue on into the bedroom. And then, as you can see in the lower right-hand portion of the video, there is a board with some splines about to be put in to allow me to turn direction again and go back to that wall. Floor that corresponds with the front edge of this tongue. So I go ahead and I nail through the tongue, through that line. Now I'm going to go around on the back side of that board and nail through the tongue. I'll have to set these nails, but they keep the board from moving and they hold the back side of the plank down. So we've got our next board here. We're going to glue that.
up. Follow that line on the floor. There. Wait on it when I nail it. Of course, it would help if we had nails. So let's follow that line. I'll put a few on the back side. Nail it the lid side. Then we can finish up this section, finish up in the closet there, and then move this stuff, this extraneous stuff from the bedroom back here so we can finish installing this. Okay, so we're back installing this pre-finished engineered plank flooring. And as you can see, it's kind of a tight area up here as well. Set up tools. Real estate's out of green. So, clean this area out in front of me and vacuum the floor up, which is very important because it's getting glued down. Glue will not stick to a dusty floor. And the reason we're using glue is the glue is actually a much better fastener than mechanical fasteners. So we're going to lay the floor out, installing it as we go. We've got this little closet, I kind of can't film back here, so I'm going to do that. You won't see that. Take my word, it's getting done. We're going to go as far as we can, And then the area where the camera and all my tools are, which you don't see, that's all going to get moved back, and we'll complete installing this room. We're done installing this room. There's another bedroom that we have to clear out into this bedroom to install it. So let's get started. Okay, so we finished up that other bedroom, and now we're on to the master bedroom. We finished up this hallway, which is going in the opposite direction. So in order to get into the master bedroom, we have to manufacture an artificial spline, which is just a tongue that we place into the groove side of the plank to lock everything together. I've gone ahead and figured out the first plank that fits around this doorway, put it in place dry, mark the front edge of the tongue on the floor, snapped a line through that all the way to the opposite wall, so I have a straight line to go off of going into the master bedroom. But to finish the area in the back side, we're going to have to put a spline all the way along the back side of that and glue that in. That way the floor will lock together, everything is tongue and groove. So let's go ahead and do that. day yesterday, even though I was very tired. I moved a bunch of material up into the hallway, so I wouldn't have to do it today. I just get started and get going. So let's get started. Let's get going.